Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we dive into the world of tech, explore coding tutorials and unlock your creativity with web development tips. If you are passionate about building amazing apps, staying ahead in tech game, or turning your ideas into reality, then you are on the right place. Here you will find step-by-step guides, practical examples to level up your skills. Before we dive in, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest content that could take your skills to the next level. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Alright, let's jump right in. In today's video, we are going to build this tech blog website whereby we will have this homepage that will show all the posts, and then we will implement this pagination. You can see pagination, and then we implement post detail, you can see, and as well we have these related articles. We are going to implement these as well, okay? And then we will implement this search functionality, which will use Elasticsearch. So if we search Django, we'll get all posts that contain Django in their body or title. So this is what we are going to build. In this video, you are going to learn 1, how to create virtual environments, 2, how to create Django project, 3, how to create the Django app and then configuring it. 4th, you are going to learn on how to set up static files. 5th, on how to install Elasticsearch in your machine and then configuring it in your project. And then 6th, you will learn on how to install TailwindCSS and use it for styling. So this tech blog is styled using TailwindCSS. And then lastly, we will learn on how to rebuild the indexes for search. Okay, so those are the things that you are going to learn here, and as well we will learn on how to create these paginations and all those things. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into learning these things. Okay, so I just want to remind you, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss anything that we post, so that you are the first person to watch. And if you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and also if you have any suggestions, you can leave a comment in the comment section. So let's jump right in. Now we have opened our VS Code. The first thing that we need to do is to create virtual environment. To do that, you ensure you have installed Python in your machine. To check if you have installed Python in your machine, just type Python, then hyphen, and then capital V. You can see I'm running on Python 3.13.2, so it is installed. If it is not installed, just visit python.org, then you can get instruction on how to install it in your machine depending on your operating system. Now let's create virtual environment. To create a virtual environment is Python 3.13m and then venv as virtual environment, and give it a name. For me, I'm going to call it .env. Give it a few seconds to create. It has been created. The next part that you need to do is to activate that virtual environment. To activate it, you need to run this source, then the virtual environment name. For my case, it is .env, then bin activate. So you can confirm that your virtual environment has been activated by seeing the name of the virtual environment being in bracketed like this. So if you see these, you just know that your virtual environment has been activated. So once we have activated our virtual environment, now we can install dependencies into that virtual environment. So the first one is pip install Django. Give it some few seconds to install. You can see it has successfully installed Django version 5.1.7. Now we can create Django project. So to do that, we say Django admin start project, not that. Okay, so it is Django admin start project, and then we give a project name. So for me, I will say blog is my project name. You can see it has created this blog. Now let's change our directory into our project. So we say cd blog, and then inside our project we need to create an app for posts. So we'll say Django admin start app, and we call that app posts. So we have this app, we have the project, and inside the project we have these files. We have settings, URLs. So inside the settings, so this file will contain all the project settings and then we have sgi.py and wsgi. Those are server gateways. We have the URLs. These will contain the entire project URLs, and inside the posts we have as well we have these init.py. This is to tell that this folder is a Python package, and as well we have this admin.py. This will contain admin interface customizations. We have apps.py, we have models. This is where we will define how our data will look like. We have tests, we need to test. We write our test inside here. We have views, and then we have manage.py. This helps us interact with the project from the terminal. Okay, and then when we make migrations to our models, some files will be created here. After doing that, we need to add our app inside our installed app list. So this is our installed app list. So right below static files, we need to add our app, which is posts. Okay, once we do that, we need now to configure static files. So since our project will be using images, so we need to configure those static files so that the images can be found in their location. So to do that, we need to start configuring it. First, we'll start with media URL. So we'll say media URL equals to, say we want it to be saved inside a folder called media. Then we need to have static files directories. So we'll say static files dias equals to, and then we'll say base directory, and then we define where we want our static files to be. So we want our static files to be in a folder called static, and then we need to create a media root. So media root equals to base directory, and then we say media. Then we need to have static root, so it would be equals to base directory static files. So once we do this, we need to do some configuration in our URLs. So open the project URLs here, and then do some importation. So we need to import the settings. So from Django.conf, import settings. Then we need to import the static. So we'll say from Django.urls.conf, not .conf, .urls.static, import static. And then below our URL patterns, we need to have this if settings.debug. So for production, we will not be using this strategy. That is why we are saying if settings is debug. If debug is true, we need to store these uploaded images within our file system. But for production, you need to configure something like AWS or Cloudinary to serve your images. Okay. So we'll say URL patterns equals to static. We say settings dot media URL. Then we have document root equals to settings dot media root. Okay. We also need to do this for static root and static URL. So I'll just copy this, and then below it I will paste it. And here we will have, instead of media, we will have static, and then here we will have static root. So basically this will help us if we upload an image. This will help our project to get the location of that image and then serve it on our front end. Okay, so once we have configured our static, we need to create in our settings. You can see we have defined static files directory to be static. So we need to create this static. So inside our project here, we need to create a folder called static. So this folder will contain all our static files like CSS, like JavaScript, like our images will be contained here. Since we have configured these, they will be easily accessed since we will be loading static in our templates. Okay, so once we create this, we need to configure our templates. We need to tell Django where to find our templates. To do that, you need to come to templates list here, and then we have dias, this directory, and then we say where we want these. We want Django to find our templates, so we'll say base directory, go to a folder called templates. Okay, so basically here we are telling Django that inside our root directory, which is our base directory, inside a folder that is called templates, that is where you will find all templates in this project. So we go back to our base directory, which is blog, and then create that folder called templates. So far we have done, we have learned on how to create Django project. We have learned how to create and install Django apps. We have learned on how to configure static files. And then fourthly, we have learned on how to tell Django where to find our templates. So this is the project structure we are going to use, whereby we have a project, and inside the project we have an app, and inside an app we have a separate folder that will contain our static files, and inside that project again we have our templates, a separate folder that will contain all the project templates. So inside these templates we can have another structure whereby we will have a base.html. So we say base.html. So this base.html will be inherited by all other templates. Okay, so let's say title will be tech blog. Okay, so these will be inherited by all other templates, and then inside these templates we will have a folder called posts to match the app. So all templates that will be inside the posts will be the templates that will represent the post app. Okay, so that is the structure that we are going to use. So those are the things that we have learned so far, and then next we are going to learn on how to install Tailwind CSS. After configuring our templates, next thing that we want to do, since in this project we are going to use Tailwind CSS to style our templates, so we are going to install our Tailwind CSS. To do that, we need to go to tailwindcss.com. Then we are going to install CLI. If you are using Vite, you click here and they will show steps on how to install it on Vite post CSS, but in this case we are going to use Tailwind CLI. So we'll click on that and then we'll copy this. For this to work, you need to install npm in your machine. So ensure your machine has npm. So in my case, I have already installed npm and Node.js. So I'll just paste it in the terminal, enter. Wait for a few seconds to install our Tailwind CSS CLI. Once it's done, let's go back to the documentation. So we need to create input.css and then add this directive inside. So I'm going to copy that directive. Since we had already configured our static files, so we will head into static folder, and inside that static folder we'll say CSS. We'll create a new folder called CSS. Inside CSS folder we will have input.css, and then inside our input.css we will add this directive. So we can confirm if we had configured our static files. So you can see here we had configured our static files. We had told Django where to find our static files. So that is why we created these input.css inside static, and then we created CSS. So all our static files will be residing inside static folder. Once we have done that, let's go back to Tailwind CSS documentation. So you can see we need to execute this command so that it can generate output.css. This output.css is the one that we are going to use in our style. Okay, so to do that, we need to go to the terminal. Let me clear the terminal and then say npx at Tailwind CSS, then say CLI. Then we define our input by adding that flag I, and then give the directory of our input inside static, say CSS input.css. Then we want the output to be generated, so we use that flag O, and then we give the location of our output. So our location will be static CSS folder, and then we want our output to be called output CSS, and then we are going to use this flag watch so that whenever we make changes in our template, it automatically generates the output.css. Okay, hit enter, and then you can see output.css has been generated, and you can see the version that we are using is version 4. This is the latest version. So if we open this output.css, you can see a lot of classes have been generated automatically without us writing any CSS. Okay, so this is the beauty of Tailwind CSS. So once we have done that, we need to go to our base.html. So we need to load static so that we can use the output.css. So we'll say load static. So we have loaded static. Now we we need to use our output.css as our CSS file for styling these templates, since other templates will be inheriting this base.html. So we'll say link, and then href will point out to our output.css, say static, and then we will go to css output.css. Okay, so let's try this. So if we say class and say background red 500, so you can see the colors reflected. That means that our Tailwind CSS has been installed successfully. Okay, now we need to implement our posts. We have done this. We have configured our templates. We have installed our Tailwind CSS. So the next thing that we need to do is now start creating the pages. Okay, so to create the pages, we need to move on to the views. So let me close this. So we'll go to our posts app, and inside the views we'll create various views. So the first function that we want to create is posts. So we'll say div posts. It takes in the request. Once it takes in the request, let's return render, and then say request, and then let's have the template location. So template location will be inside the posts, and it will be articles.html, and then we will create a URL file. So you will say urls.py, and then we'll say from Django.urls import path, and then we will import the views. So we'll say from .views or from .import views, and then from there we'll have URL patterns. So URL patterns equals to, it is a list. So the first path is love that we are using an empty string so that it can be our home page. So we say views, and then we call in our view function, this function here, this function we just created here. So we call it here, so views.posts, and then we give in the name for reverse. So we say name will be articles. So once we do this, we need to include these app URLs inside our project URLs here. So here we are going to import include. So we say include. Okay, and then inside the URL patterns, we need to include the app URLs. So we'll say path, and then we say include, and we pass in the apps. So we say our app is posts.urls. Once we do this, we need to create, we have in our views, you can see we have these templates. So we need to create this template. So you go inside the templates, and we have the posts folder. Inside post folder, we need to create articles.html. So we'll say articles.html. So remember, every article will be inheriting base.html. So we are going to extend that. So we'll say extends base.html, and then we can have a block title. So we say block, say title. Let's say this is our home page. So we say home, then let's have block content. We haven't configured this yet. So let's go back to our base.html. Inside our body we need to have block, say block content. So this means that, let me comment this, all other templates content will go here. So we'll say content goes inside here. Okay, so anything within this block content will be passed here. So this type of structure helps us to avoid repetition. So you can see we are just extending this base.html to our article instead of having this structure again in our articles template where we have the head and the body. We can do this and then extend these our templates. Okay, so let me have this and say h1, say articles. Okay, now let's run the server. So let me open another terminal, say cd blog, we are changing directory into our project, and say python manage.py run server. Okay, so we have an issue, the URLs. So let's go back to our project URLs. You can see we have include was not supposed to be imported here. It was supposed to be imported here. After path, let's import include. Now it should work. Yes, you can see the server is running now. So we need to visit our browser. Let's go to 127.0. So you can see we have these articles, and you can see the background is red. So let's go back to the base, and then we can remove these. Let's remove this background. If we remove the background and refresh, you can see everything changes. So in this, we have configured everything. We have configured the project settings. We have configured our templates. We have installed and configured Tailwind CSS. So as far as the project structure is concerned, we have completed. Now let's implement our blog website. And remember, we are going to integrate Elasticsearch for search functionality. That is the main issue. That is the main point for this video. Okay, how to use Elasticsearch for your Django project. So let's move on. Let's move on now to creating the models, and then creating the signals, the documents and forms, and as well styling our front end. Okay, so next, now we need to create the models. Okay, so we want the admin to be able to post for these post the posts, and is able to post the articles, edit the articles as well. So we need to have the backend and front end. So that is why we need to create the model, so that we can create the database. So let me close all this, and then we go to our posts, and then open models. So in the models, we are going to create our custom manager to filter published posts and optimize query set for performance. So to do that, we need to start with creating this custom manager. So we'll say class and say published manager, which will inherit from models.manager, and then we will have a function. We are going to override the function get query set. So we say def get query set, this function. So let me remove this. Okay, so it returns super and get query set, and then now we need to filter. So we'll say dot filter. We want to filter based on the status. We are going to add this on our post model. So status equals to published. Okay, this will be the field inside our post model. Okay, so we want this field choice to be published, and then we need to create the post model. So we'll say class post, which will inherit from models.model. And then the first thing that we need to have those status choices. So we'll say status choices. Okay, we'll open our tuple, and inside our tuple we'll have another tuple, and say the first choice will be draft, comma, and then give it a draft, that's value. Another one will be published. We'll say published. Okay, and then we need to define our fields. So we'll say title equals to models. This will be a character field. So we'll say char field, and then we have to define the max length. So we say max length, say 255, and now we need to index this field. So we say db index. So this will help at optimizing the queries. So we'll say db index equals to, and then we will have a slug. We need to slugify this. So we'll say models dot slug field. So this slug field will help us when we are creating absolute URLs which are friendly with search engine optimization. This must be, let's define the max length. So we'll say max length equals to 255, and then we want this slug to be unique. So we say unique equals to true. We don't want the slug we want this slug to be unique in every post. And then we don't want this slug to be editable. We want this slug to be generated on save. So we will say editable to be false. We need to have the intro of the post. So we'll say intro equals to, this one will be a text field. So we'll say models.text field. And then let's add a help text. A help text is a text that tells you what is supposed to happen in that field. So we'll say help text, and then we'll say a brief summary for search engine snippets. So we say brief summary search engine snippets. Okay, so this will be a brief summary of the post, and then we need to upload the image on that post. So we'll say this will take image field, so models dot image field, and then inside this image field you need to define where this image will be uploaded to. So we'll say upload to, and then we say we want this to be uploaded to a folder called uploads, and this folder should be tied with the dates. Okay, so to do that, so we use the %y for the year, and then we use then percentile again, and we say M for the month, and then percentage again, D for the day it was uploaded, and then we also want to have the width field. So we'll say width field equals to image width, and as well, let me close this. So we have width field which will be image width. We also want to have height field, so we say height field to be image height, and then let's add another help text. So we'll say help text equals to, let me remove this, help text equals to, so here we'll say web optimized image JPEG or WebP format. Then below that, just enter here, and below these we need to have image width. So we say image width equals to, and then we say models. This will be an integer field, so integer field, and then we'll say editable equals to false. We'll do the same for image height. So image height, remember we used these fields inside our image field. So the models dot integer field, and as well these will be editable false. Okay, and then we want to have the body. So in this body we want to embed a rich text editor. So in this rich text editor we are going to install CK editor. So we need to go to Python package index and search for Django CK editor. Give it a few seconds to load, and once it has loaded, the CK editor that we want is this one. So click on this, and then we need to install this. So we need to copy that and then go back to the terminal. Let me close this. So we'll say clear, and then paste that. Give it a few seconds to install. Once it has installed, since we are using as well image, we need to install the Pillow. Pillow is a library that will help us to process the images. So we'll say pip install Pillow. Okay, so once we have installed those two, we need to configure our CK editor. First, we need to go to our settings file. So you go to this settings file, and inside our installed app, we need to add a CK editor. So we need to add this CK editor, and as well add CK editor uploader. Okay, once we have added that, we also need to do some configuration of it. We need to set the upload path of it. So right below this, we'll comment this out and say CK editor settings. And then below that, we'll say we want to have CK editor upload path. So we say CK editor upload path, and then that path will be uploads. Then we need to have a CK editor file name generator. So we'll say CK editor file name generator, and we say to be utils.get. It should be small letters. So utils.get file name. And lastly, we need to have CK editor configs. So CK editor configs. So this is a dictionary, and then let's have the default ones. So we say default, not defaults. And then when this, we want to start with the toolbar. So we say toolbar. We want our toolbar to be full. So we say full. And then we want to have the height of our editor. So we say the height, and then we will have the height to be 300. We also want to have the width. So the width will be, let's want 99%. And then lastly, we want to have the tab spaces. So we say tab spaces. The tab spaces will be 4. Once we have done that, we need as well to configure the CK editor image backend. So we'll say CK editor image backend to to be CK editor, to be CK editor uploader dot backends dot we are going to use pillow backend. So CK editor image backend, we are using CK editor uploader backends pillow backend. We also want to enforce the compression of these images that are being uploaded from the CK editor. So we say CK editor, then we force JPEG. You know, JPEG can have large sizes. So we say JPEG compress, we say to be true. And lastly, we need to have the quality of the image. So we'll say CK editor image quality to be 90. Okay, that is relatively good quality. So once we have done that, we need to go back to our models. Now we go back to our models. We have configured our editor. So we go to our models. We need to import few things. So first thing that we need to import is from CK small letters. So we'll say from CK editor uploader dot fields import rich text uploading field. Okay, this is what we are going to use for our body. So let's go scroll down to, so here we need to have body equals to, and we'll use rich text uploading. Okay, and then we need to have the publish. So publish field equals to, so this publish field will be a date time field, which will use the time zone, the current time zone that we are in as a default. So we need to say models dot date time field, and then the default one will be time zone dot now. So we need to import time zone. So here, that's right below here. So we'll say from utils, not from utils, from Django.utils import time zone. So here we will have the default one. So default equals to time zone dot now. Okay, and then we need to index this field. So we'll say db index to be true. We also want to get the time this post was created. So we'll say created equals to, it also takes date time field. So models dot date time field. And then here we are going to use auto now add to be true. And then we want to take that time this post was updated. So we say updated equals to models dot date time field. In this case, we are going to use auto now be true. And as well, now we want to have the status. This status will help us know if this post has been published or it is a draft. So we are going to use models status equals to models dot car field. Let's have a max length to be 9, and then we have those choices that we created early, these choices. Okay, so it will be a drop down where the admin will be selecting the choices of that post. So we'll say choices equals to, and then we pass in these status choices, say status choices, and then we want to have the default one to be the draft. Say default equals to draft. And now we want to have our managers. We have the default manager. So the default manager, we are going to objects equals to models dot manager. So this is models dot manager. This is our default manager. And then now we want to use our custom manager for published posts. So we'll say published equals to published manager. Okay. So remember, we had created this custom manager here, and then we are calling it inside our post. Okay. And then we want to add our class meta to change the behavior of our fields. So we say class meta. We want to have an ordering in a descending order. So we say ordering equals to have it on a descending order. That is the latest post at the top, the oldest post at the bottom. We are going to use negative, and then we are going to use the field publish. Okay, check, we are going to use this field, okay, to order our posts. And then we want to do some indexes to optimize our database. So indexes equals to, so models dot index. So this helps to speed up data fetching from our database. So this will compose site index for common filters. So we'll say fields equals to, so we list the fields that we want to index. So the first one is status, another one is publish. Okay, and then we need to return a string. So we'll say we need to return a string representation that is readable to human beings. So we'll say div and string text self, and then we want to return our string as the title. So we'll say return self.title. Okay, and then we need to override our save method to auto generate the slug and optimize image metadata on save. So to do that, we need to override this. We'll say dev save, okay, text self, pass in the arguments, then we can pass in the keyword arguments. Then we'll say if not self.slug. Okay, if that post has no slug, we want to create slug for that post. So we'll say self.slug equals to we want to slugify this. We need to import the slugify function. To do that, we need to go up here and say from django.utils.text import slugify. Okay, so we are going to use that function. So here we are going to say if not self.slug, if this post has no slug, then we need to slugify the title. So we say slugify then self.title. So this is to ensure that the slug has to be in every post, and then we give it the max length of 255 characters. Okay, once we do that, we need to say super, then we save, say we pass in our arguments and then keyword arguments. So this function will help us to ensure that this post has the slug. So if this slug is empty, this function will ensure that it slugifies the title on save, so that you don't get an error. And then we also need to create absolute URLs for our posts. So absolute URLs helps us to have search engine optimization friendly URLs, so that can help in search engine optimization. So to do that, we need to say div get absolute URL. It takes in self, and then now we need to return a canonical URL with date-based structure for search engine optimization. So we need to say return. We are going to use reverse. Okay, so before we use reverse, we need to import that reverse. So to do that, let's go back here and say from Django.urls import reverse. Okay, so this reverse will help us create this canonical URL with date-based structure for SEO, that is search engine optimization. So in our reverse, we need to pass in the post detail. So we are going to create this detail in a few. So we'll say post detail. In our URL, we are going to create this URL. So for now, don't get worried where does this post detail come from. We are going to create this URL. Okay, and then we pass in our arguments for these URLs to make it canonical. So we'll say we want to have the year inside that URL. We want to have the month, the day, and then the slug. So we'll say self.publish.year, then say self.publish.month, then self.publish.day, and then we pass in the slug, so self.slug. Okay, so in short, this URL will contain the year, the month, the day, and then the slug which will be the title. Okay, so don't worry about this. I'm going to show you how it will look like. Okay, so once we have done our models, we need to create our admin. Okay, so let's go to our posts here and move on to admin file. We need to register our models here. Okay, so here we need to register these models. First, we need to have we need to import the models. So to do that, we'll say from .models port. Our model was post, so we are importing this model. This is the only model that we have, post. Now we need to register it. So we are going to use the decorator. So we say admin.register. Then we register post. Now we need to create admin interface for content management and visuals. So we'll say class post admin, and then it will inherit from admin dot model admin. So here we are going to define the fields to include in the admin form, where as we exclude slug, so we'll say fields equals to, it will be a list. We want the title, we want the intro, we want body, we want image, and then we want the date it was published, so publish, and lastly we want the status of that post. Okay, and then we are going to create we are going to have display fields in the list view. So here we'll have list display, or list display will have the thumbnail. We want the image uploaded related to that field to be displayed, so we are going to create the function for displaying the thumbnail in a second. So here list display, we are going to have a thumbnail, then we are going to have the title, we are going to have a date it was published, so publish, we are going to have the status, and then we need to filter these posts, so we are going to use list filter, and then we want to filter them based on the time it was created. So created, the time, those posts that have been published, so publish, the time they were published, and as well we are going to filter them based on the status. Okay, and then we want to add a search field, so we say search fields. Okay, so we want to search on the body and then on the title, and then we want to have list display links. So list display links to be on the title. Say title, since this is a tuple and it only has one element, so you have to add this comma at the end. We want to have the pagination, so we want to show only 10 posts per page. So we'll say list per page. We want to list 10 posts per page. Okay, now since we are using this thumbnail, now let's create a function that creates that thumbnail. Okay, so to create that function to display the thumbnail in the admin list view, so we are going to say at admin.display. Okay, and then let's give it a description to be thumbnail. Then we create a function called thumbnail. So def thumbnail, which takes self and then the object. So we are going to use format HTML to create that thumbnail. So we have to import that. So below the admin, we are going to say from Django.utils.html import format HTML. Import this format HTML. So below this function, so we are going to return that format of the HTML. So we are going to say return format HTML, and then we are going to format these. So we'll say F, and then we'll have the image, and then src will be equals to, then we format this. It will be an object dot image dot URL. So here have that. Then we can have width, can say width of 40 pixels. Then we can have the height, say height of 40 pixels, and as well we can have loading, say loading to be lazy. Okay, so that is it. So this thumbnail, this function will generate the thumbnail of that post based on the image that was uploaded. Okay, and then we are using that thumbnail in our list display. Okay, now lastly we need to override our save model to automatically generate the slug from the title if the post is being created. So to do that, we can say dev save model. So let me remove this for now. So we have save model, serve text in the request, text in the object, text in the form, and then text in the change. Okay, so we want to only generate the slug if it does not exist. Okay, so we'll say if not object dot slug, then we need to say object dot slug equals to, we need to slugify this. So we need to import the slugify function. So to import that slugify function, we need to go to from Django.utils.text import slugify, and then here we'll say slugify object dot title. Okay, and then now we need to return, say return super dot save model. Then we say request, we pass in the object, we pass in the form, then we pass in the change. Okay, once we have done that, we need to create one more step so that we can test these models. We need to create a post detail. Okay, or to test this, let's go back to our model. Let me comment this because I know we haven't created this post detail and passed in these arguments, so it will bring an error. So let me just comment it for now, and then we will be back at it once we create this. So now let's make these migrations. So Python manage.py make migrations. So this command will generate migration file. Okay, so we have ordering must be a tuple list if you want. Okay, so let's go here. Ordering, okay, this is a tuple. I forgot to add the comma at the end since a tuple has only one element. So let's try again to create Python manage.py make migrations. You can see we have post migrations and we have the create model post. So if we go to post and migration, you can see that file 001 initial, and if we open, you can see the order of our fields. We have the ID, title, slug, intro, image width, all the fields that we have defined in our models. Now let's apply these changes to our database. Stay clear. And then now to apply those changes in our database, we need to use Python manage.py migrate. Once you migrate, it will create all the possible tables. Now let's create the super user so that we can log into our admin interface. So we'll say Python manage.py create super user. Okay, I misspelled something. So Python manage.py. Okay, put a comma instead of a period. So I say, okay, username, let me put it admin. Let me have my own email. So snipermarube@gmail.com. And then let me have the password. So sniper84.1, 84. So we have that. Now let's run the server. So I'm going to clear this and say Python manage.py run server. Now let's go to our terminal. Everything is okay. Now let's navigate to our admin. Then we have created that. Login. So you can see we have these, our posts. We open these posts and let's try to add a post. Reverse. Okay, so this is, we forgot to add the CK editor URLs inside our project URLs. So we need to go back to the project URLs. Our project URLs is here. Then inside our project URLs, we need to include the CK editor uploader URLs. So we'll say path, then we will say CK editor and include CK editor uploader dot URLs. Let's add a comma there. So this is what we needed to include. Let's go back to our browser and then refresh. You can see our CK editor is here. You can see now you can edit your text. You can add the emojis. Okay, you can quote. Okay, so you can underline, you can bold, you can add images. Okay, you can upload the image and all that. So that is why we wanted to use the CK editor as our editor for our body. So let's try to post something. So let's say, let me just copy this as our title. We copy it. Let me copy this as our introduction. Okay, this is just an example, and then put this as our body. Then let's choose a file, an image. So let me go to images, post this, then publish date. Let me say today, just now, and then change the status from draft to published and save. So you can see that image is being shown here. This is shown because we had created this function. Okay, this function helps us to display the thumbnails. So here you can see the image, you can see the title, the time it was published. Okay, we as well have this search functionality here that is achievable through these search fields. Okay, and if I try to search something that does not exist and try to search, you can see I get 0. But if I search something that exists, say Tailwind, enter, you get list of those posts that contain this word. And then we have these fields. We are having these fields, filter fields, filtering the post based on the time they were created, published, and the status. Okay, so that is it for our models and our admin. The next part, we are going to create the views and as well the product views, product detail, not product views and product details, but the post views and post detail. So once we have done that, we need now to go back to creating the views for these posts. So I'm going to close everything. Then on the posts app, go to views. So here in the posts, there are two things that we are going to implement. We are going to implement the number of posts per page and create the pagination. And then we are going to do some cache, okay, where we will be caching these posts, okay. So we are going to create a paginated post list with optimized database queries and caching. So let's get to it. So let's start. So below the post, we need to start by caching. So let's create a cache key. So we say cache key equals to, say we want to format this and say f and say posts page, and then we say request dot get. This get is in caps, so get dot get is a dot, not a comma, so dot get. Then we say our page and we say 1. So here we have defined a function called name posts, and that it takes HTTP request object as its parameter, and then we have created a cache key string that includes the current page from the requests get parameter. So the default we have defaults to 1 if no page is specified. And then the next thing is we want to attempt to retrieve the posts from the cache using the generated key cache. So to do that, we'll say posts equals to cache dot get, and then we say cache key. We need to import the cache, so we go here and say from Django dot core dot cache import cache. Okay, so here we are attempting to retrieve the posts from the cache using the generated cache key. Okay, and then we need to check if the posts were not found in the cache. So if the cache is missing, so we'll say if not posts. Okay, and then if the cache is missing, we fetch only published posts from the database, but we want to only select specified fields, okay, to optimize the query. Okay, so to do that, if the cache is missing, so we want to optimize the query by fetching only published posts from the database. So we will say post list. So we say post list equals to, we want to get only published posts. So we say post dot published. So remember, in our models we had created this a custom publish manager, and then here we had defined that our custom manager is published. So that is why we are using post.published, so that we can get only published posts. So we need to import this model. So we'll say from .models import post. Then we want to have this and say published post dot all dot only. Okay, we want to get specific fields, okay, from these published posts, so that we can optimize the query from the database. Okay, so we want to get the title. We also want to get the slug. We also want to get intro. We also want to get the image. We also want to get publish. And then we need to create a paginator. We need to create a paginator object that will split the post list into pages with we want to have 6 posts per page. Okay, so to do that, we need to do some importation. So we need to import paginator. So below the cache, so we want to say from Django.co.paginator import paginator. And then below this, we are going to have a paginator. So in this paginator, we'll list 6 posts per page. So below this, we'll say paginator equals to paginator. And then we want to have post list. We pass in the post list and define the number of posts we want per page. So will be 6. And then we want to get the requested page number from the get parameter. So to do that, below this, we'll say page number equals to request dot get. We pass in the page. And then we want to get the specific page of posts from the paginator based on the requested page number. Okay, so below that, we'll say posts equals to paginator dot get page, and then we pass in the page number. And then we want to store the paginated posts in the cache with the previously generated cache key, setting a timeout of 300 seconds, which is around 5 minutes. So to do that, we'll say cache dot set, and then we pass in the cache key. We store that posts, we store those posts, then we give a timeout of cache for 5 minutes. So we say timeout, which will be 300 seconds. Once we do that, we can pass in now our context. So inside the return render, we render the posts article template, passing the posts either from the cache or freshly queried to the template context. To do that, we use this. We remove this one. Okay, so this is our context. We say posts and then posts. So to explain what we have done here, so basically what we have done, we defined a view function called posts that takes in HTTP request object as its parameter, and then we created a cache key, this part, cache key string that includes the current page from the requests get parameter, and then the default one is 1. And then we attempt to retrieve the post from the cache, okay, from the cache using generated cache key. So that is why we passed in the cache key here. And then we check if the posts are found. If the posts were not found in the cache key or the cache is missing, then we fetch only published posts from the database with specific fields like title, slug, intro, image, and publish to optimize the query. And then we created a paginator object that will split the post list into pages with 6 posts per page. And then we have the page number. This gets the requested page number from the get parameter. Okay, and then we have the posts, which gets us the specific page of posts from the paginator based on the requested page number. Okay, and then we have this cache. This stores the paginated posts in the cache with the previous generated cache key, setting a timeout of 300, which is approximately of 5 minutes. Okay, and then we passed these posts inside our templates as the template context. Okay, so the reason why we are using the cache is to reduce database queries, and then we are using this only field to limit or field limiting with only to reduce data transfer from the database. And then we are using the paginator to limit the number of posts shown per page. And finally, we have a default page number, which is 1, to handle the missing page parameter. So once we have done that, now we need to create this article template. We need to style it so that we can display our posts. So let's now move to our templates. Inside our templates posts, we need to check these articles, and now let's style this article. Okay, so here in the block title, let me say it is let me call it latest articles. Let me remove this, and then let's have a div. Say div. Inside the div, let's have article. Okay, inside the article, let's have a link. and then below that a link, href link. Let's have the image. Then below href link, let's have another div. That inside that div, let's have something like time. So time, we remove this. Below the time, let's have a h2 that will contain the title. So here we'll have the src will contain the post image, the time will contain the time this post was published, and h2 will contain the title of the post. And then below h2, inside h2, we will have, this will contain the post title. Below h2, we will have a p tag. So in this p tag will contain the intro of that. Okay, so let's now, we need to loop. So we need to loop all through the posts first. So to do that, at the top of the article, so we need to use Jinja to loop all through the posts. So to loop through, we are going to say for post in posts. Okay, so remember this post is our context in our views. Okay, so that is what we are looping through. And then just below the closing tag of the article, we need to close that for loop and say and for. Okay, and now the image, we need to have the post. We need to get the URL of that image. So we are going to use double braces and say post.image.urls, and then for alt, we are going to use the title. So we are going to say post.title. So let's check if we are getting the post, the image of that post. So we are going to refresh. So you can see the image of that post. Now let's add more fields. So on the time here, we are going to use a publish, and then format that. So we are going to say post.publish. If we go back here and refresh, you can see the time it was published. Okay. And then on the h2 tag here, we need to have the title. So we are going to say post.title. Okay. And then at the p tag, we want to have the intro. So we are going to say post.intro. So if we go to our browser and refresh, we'll be able to see the time it was created, the title, and then the intro. Okay, we have the image as well. Okay, we have not styled this post for now. Now, what we want to do, let's format this time so that it can only show the month, the year, and the date. And then we don't want to show these time. To do that, we need to format it. So we use the pipe and then say date. We want it to have the format of month to be the first thing, then the day, and then we want to have the year. So if we go back here and refresh, we'll be able to see we have March 31st, 2025, and then the day, the time, the exact time has been removed. So the next thing that we want to do is now style this page. Okay, let's start with the outer div. So the outer div, we are going to use grid system so that we can create a responsive template. So class, say we are going to use grid. So you say grid, then on smaller screens we want to have one column. So we'll say grid calls 1, and then on medium screens and above we want to have 2 columns, so we'll say grid calls 2, and then on large screens we want to have 3 columns, so we'll say grid calls 3. Then we want to have the gap between the posts, so the gap 8 pixels. Okay, now let's style the article. So we'll say class, then inside that class we want to have the background of white. Okay, and then we want the edges to be rounded, so we say rounded to be LG. Let's see how it looks. So if we go here and refresh, okay, it has not applied it. Let's just continue a little bit. Rounded LG. Let's have the shadow, say shadow to be MD, and then we want to have an overflow to be hidden, and as well we want to have hover effect. We want to have an overflow hidden, and then we want to add hover effect, so we say hover, and then we want to have a shadow when the user hovers over the post, so we'll say shadow to be LG. Then we need to add transition shadow. So let's check it out. refresh, we have that. Okay, let's continue styling it. Next, now let's style the article, not article, let's style the image. So here, the image right here, let's have class equals to, we need to have the width to be full, and then let's have a height of 48, and then let's have object cover so that that image can be placed perfectly within that measurements. And then to improve the speed, let's add the loading to be lazy. Okay, so let's check it out. Fresh, can see it is coming along. Let's now style the div. So this one will have a class of padding all round of 6. And then let's style the time. So we'll say class text size to be small. So text SM. And then we have a text of gray. And then we have text of gray 500. Okay. Let's style our post title. So we have a class margin at the top of 2. And then we have a text size to be XL. Then we have a font to be bold. Okay. And then let's style this href tag. So we'll say class. This one we want to have a text of gray or text gray 800. Then we add a hover effect. We want the text to change the color to blue. So it will be text blue 500. Okay. If we can refresh this, can see we have this, and when we have you can see the title changes to something different. Okay, then let's style the intro. Okay, so we'll say class equals to, and then we say we want to have a margin at the top of 2, and then we want this to have a text of gray 600. So here we refresh, you can see we have this very nice. We have the image, we have time, we have this. So we want to have a background of the entire page. So to do that, let's go to our base.html here, and then on the body, let's add this, a class, say background gray, which is 50. Okay. And as well we can create the main content. So we can have main, and then now inside our main, now we want to add these block content inside our main. So I'm going to copy that and then paste it inside our main like that. And then let's add some classes here. So here we'll have a class, and say we want the max width to be 7XL, so that we can have the spaces on the right and left. And then to add those spaces, we need to have a margin at the x-axis to be auto, and then let's have a padding at x-axis to be 4. On smaller screens breakpoint, we need to have a padding at x-axis of 6. On large screens breakpoint, we need to have a padding of x-axis to be 8, and padding on y-axis to be 8 as well. So by doing this, we should be able to see something nice. Let's refresh this. You can see now we have this card for our post. Okay, we haven't created our navbar and the footer. So for now, we are just displaying the posts that have been added from our admin interface. So that now we want to create the pagination for this. Remember, on our views, we had added the pagination. Okay, so you can see we have the paginator here. So we have to create the pagination on our articles. To do that, we are going to create inside our articles template, we are going to create the pagination. So below this div, we have to create pagination. So I'm going to comment this and say pagination, and below that we will have a div, and then below that div we will have another div, and then we will check if these posts have a previous page. So we will use this ginger and say if posts dot has previous. Okay, so let's close this if statement. So we'll say and if, and then right below that we will have a href tag. Now our href will have this question mark, and then we say page equals to, then open double curly braces, and then we say posts dot, and then we give it the previous page number. Okay, and then here we will say previous, and below this we will have a span, and inside this span we'll have a page. Okay, it will show us the current page, so we'll say the current page will be posts dot number, and then we want to show all pages, so it will be page post dot number of all pages. Okay, so which will be posts dot paginata dot number of pages, num pages. Okay, so if you are on page 1, it will be 1 of, let's say you have a total of 20 pages, so it will be 1 of 20, 2 of 20. Okay, and now let's check if the post has the next page. So we are going to use the same technique. So we'll say if posts dot has next, then we close that if statement, say and if, and just inside that we are going to have a href link. Inside that href link we'll have question mark page, and then we say equals, we get the current page, we say post, we get the next page, so post dot next page number. Okay, and here we say next. This is a very simple pagination. So I forgot to wrap everything to check if post has the paginator. So right above this we need to check that. So we'll say if we want to show this part, if posts dot paginator dot number of pages, so it will be num pages is greater than 1. Okay, and then we close this and if. Okay, so this pagination will only be shown if the pages, if there is more than 1 pages, and remember each page has a maximum of 6 posts. Okay, so if we go back here and refresh, we will not be able to see that pagination since we only have 1 post. So what we are going to do, we are going to add 6 more posts so that we can have 2 pages and see how it looks. Okay, so we go to our admin and then let's add more posts. So here we'll add more posts. Let me copy this so that we can have, let's say this is our title. You can say title. Let's copy this as well as our intro. Then we have that as our body. Let's copy the image, published, save. I will repeat the same several so that we can have more posts. Published, save. Post slug is the same. That is the reason for that is because I entered the same title. Hello world. Let me try to save this. So we have 3 posts, 4 more to go. Let me copy this as our title. Just copy something else. So you can see we have a total of 7 posts. So let's see if our pagination is being shown. So refresh, is it not? So let's refresh this. Okay, so you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 6 posts on this page. So let's style our pagination so that it can be shown. So let's go to our articles and here let's start styling this. So let's have a class and have a margin top of 12, which is an flex display, and then we want to justify things at the center. Then on the second div class, we say class equals to, we want to have it at flex, and then we want to have space at x-axis, so space x-axis to be 2. Then let's style this. So here we will say class, and then we will have padding at x-axis to be 4, padding at y-axis to be 2, and then we have a background of blue 500, and then we will have a text to be white, and then we'll have the edges to be rounded. Let's have a hover effect. So we say hover effect, hover to be, we have a background of blue 600. Okay, let's move on to styling this span. So on the span we say class, and here we'll have to say padding at x-axis to be 4, and then we have padding at y-axis to be 2, and then we have background to be gray 100, and then we have these rounded. Okay, lastly let's copy this. It's the same, so we'll copy this styling on the previous, then add the same styling on the next button. Okay, so once we do this, now let's refresh and see. Let me just close this. It should be showing something. So to try the pagination, let's try to lower this number to only 4 per page. Let's have that 4 and then refresh. We have 4, but still we can't see the pagination. So there must be something wrong. Okay, I misspelled these pages, so it should be num pages with single G. Now let's refresh this. We refresh, you can see we have page 1 out of 2. We go to the next page, you can see we have page. Okay, it is not moving to the next page. Let's see, something is wrong. Okay, so we have if post as previous. Let's see the next, if posts as next, if post dot as next, then we have this page equals to post dot next page number. Okay, why is it not working? So let's now return this back to 6 pages, 6 posts per page. So 6, go back and refresh. So we have 6 of them, and if we go to the next, it is unable to go. Okay, so I think we have a problem here. Next button, so let me do this, then push this in. So if posts, let me have some spaces here so that you can see if posts dot has next, we have this link which has page equals to post dot next page number. Okay, and then we have these as well. So let's see, let's try to add 2 here. Enter, you can see we are page of 2. Let's go previous, it goes to page 1. Next, okay, next is not working, something is not right. Something is not right here. So if posts dot has next, then we have this post. Okay, no, this should not be post, it should be posts. Okay, so let's refresh this again. So let me remove this, refresh. So we click on the next, we go to page 2 of 2, previous page 1 of 1. Okay, let's see how responsive this is. So if we inspect, you can see it is highly responsive, and as well we have our pagination down here. So you can go to next and then previous. So far we have done pagination. We have also styled our article template. So the next part that we want to do is to create a view for post detail, whereby when the reader clicks on this title, is directed to the post detail. Okay, so we are going to go back to our posts up and on back to the views, and on the views side we are going to create a view for the detail. Okay, so for the post detail we are going to create a view. So we are going to define a view, this post detail view with cached related content and optimized queries. So this is what we are going to do. So here we are going to define a view function named post detail. So post detail, and this view function will take a request, which is an HTTP request object, and then it will take a publication date components. Okay, so it will take year, month, day, then post. Remember, we are creating this view function so that we can have that canonical URL as well. So that is why we are passing those parameters. So the post will be that slug, okay, which is a URL friendly identifier. And then now we need to retrieve a single published post or return a 44 if not found. So to do that, we need to say post. We are going to use get object or for function. So we need to import that. So we say get object or for. So post and say get object or for. That means that we have to get that object. If that object is not found, then we return a 44 error. Then we need to pass in the post dot published. We just want those posts that are published, not draft one. And then we pass in the slug equals to post, then publish here. So we say publish equals to year, then we pass in publish month equals to month, and then we pass in publish day. We close this. Publish day equals to day. Okay, so here we are retrieving here we are retrieving a single published post or return 404 if not found, matching the slug post, and then publication year, month and day from the URL parameters. Post.published suggests a custom manager filtering only published posts. Remember on our models, we had created that custom publish manager, this one is right here, and then we had passed it published. So that is why we are using that. Okay. Now we have to create a cache key string using the post ID to store or retrieve related posts. So to do that, we need to go back to our views. We close this. Below here, we need to have a cache. So here we need to have cache, and then we say this is our cache key. We format it and say related, then post.id. Okay, so basically here we are creating a cache key string using the post ID to store or retrieve related posts, and then we are attempting to get cached related posts using the generated key. So we are going to say random posts equals to cache key, not cache key, cache dot get, and then we pass in the cache key, and then we need to check if related posts were not found in the cache, if the cache is missing. So to do that, we say if not random posts. If the cache is missing, then if cache miss queries, we query the database for published posts excluding the current one, only selected fields for optimizing the query, and then we randomize the order by using order by, and then we limit to 6. Okay, so to do that, we say random posts equals to post.published.exclude. We are excluding the current one, and we say id equals to post.id. We want to get the specific fields, so we say only. Now let's have those fields that we want so that we can optimize the query. So we say we want the title, then we want the slug, then we want the image, then we want the publish, that is the date. Now we want to order by, so dot order by. We want to randomize it. To do that, we have to use a question, and then we want to get a maximum of 6 random posts. Okay, and then finally we cache the randomly selected related posts for an hour, that is approximately 36 seconds. So to do that we need to cache this. So we say cache.set, then we pass in the cache key. Okay, and then we pass in random posts, and then let's define our time for this cache. So timeout equals to 3600 seconds, that is equivalent to 1 hour. And then now we need to render the detail template. So to render our detail template, we need to return render. Okay, we pass in the HTTP request, and then we give the location of our template. So our template will be at posts. The template name will be detail.html. And then we need to pass this context to the template. So we will open the dictionary, and then we want to pass the post as our value, and our key is post. We also want to pass random posts. Random posts will be random posts. Okay, so these will render the detail template with the main post object, either cached or freshly queried, random or random related posts. So we have done some optimization in this view. We are using efficient post lookout of get object or for, and then we are limiting fields by using only to reduce a database load, and then we are caching the related posts, which is expensive random query, so we cache it. Then we have separation of the main posts. Okay, and then we have the cache to 1 hour. Okay, so now we need to go back to our model. Now it's time to uncomment this. Okay, once we uncomment this, you can see that we have passed in the publish year, publish month, publish day, slug as our parameters as well in our post detail view. Okay, now we need to create the URLs. Inside our URLs, we need to have that URL pattern so that we can have that canonical URL. Okay, so inside our URLs, we need to have that. So post detail URL. So add this and say path, and these we will have the first argument we are going to pass in is the year, which is an int, say year, and then we can check it with the views. So you can see the views. We are going to follow this structure. First the year, month, day, and then the slug. So if we go here, we have started with the year. Next we want to move to the month. Is also an int. So int, type of int, we say month. Then day as well is an int. So we say int day, and then we pass in the slug. So we say the slug is the post. And now we want to use that views. So we say views dot post detail, and then let's give it a name. So name equals to post detail. Okay, so you can see we have created that canonical URL. So in we have this get absolute URL, and then we have these argument passed in. We have the year, month, day, and the slug, and then we passed in those things inside our we passed those arguments inside our post detail view function. So we also have year, month, day, and then the post. We also passed those parameters to our URL pattern. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do, we want to go to the articles. Now we want to pass in that URL. So for example, here we can say this will be post dot get absolute URL. Okay, we do the same for this, that is the title, so that when the user clicks on the title, is taken to the post detail page. So here as well, we can say open double curly braces and say post dot get absolute URL. So let's refresh this and see how it works. So let's refresh this. So if the reader clicks on the title, you can see we have published day. We have some errors. Views line 20. Okay, let's go to the views. Go to line 20. Okay, so we have month. Okay, the issue is here. We have publish. We have a single underscore. It should be double underscores. Okay, so let's refresh again. Template does not exist. Yes, we haven't created this template, so we are going to create that template. Let's go to the posts. Inside our templates, we have these posts, a folder, and inside this post folder, we need to create a detail template. So detail.html. Okay, so here we need to extends. So we need to extend base.html, and then we want to have a block title. We want this block title to be the post title. So post.title. Then now we want to have the block. We'll say block content, and then for now, before we style, let me have a placeholder and say post detail. Okay, so let's refresh this. You can see we are here. So the main point, look at this canonical URL. You can see we have the year, we have the month, we have the date, and then the slug. Okay, so that is why we are using this absolute URL. Okay, this is very important to create those canonical URLs. Okay, so once we have done that, we need now to style this detail template so that it can display the content of that post. Right, so to do that, let's get into it. So the first, let's have a div, then let's have a main content. So we'll open a div which will contain our main content. Then let's have an article. Okay, inside the article, let's have a header, say header. And then inside our header, we'll have h1. So this h1 will contain our post title. So we'll say post.title. And then right below that, we want to show the time. So we'll have a div, and below that div, we'll have time. So under that time, we will have open curly braces and say post dot publish, and then we need to format this date. So we'll say date, and then have that a colony, and then open double quotes and say we want to have month, a day, and then year. That is at the header. And below the header, we need to have the image now. Say image, okay, and the source of that image will be post.image.url, okay. And then for alternative text, in case the image doesn't load up, we want to have the title. So we'll have the post.title, okay. And below this image, we want to have the body, now the body of the text. So we'll create a div and say open those curly braces double. So we say post.body, and then we add save to strip away. Since we are using CK editor, so we need to strip those HTML tags. Let's refresh. We refresh, you can see we have the title, the date, then we have this image, and then the content of that post. So let's style it so that it can look professional. So to do that, let's start from the top, or before we start styling, let's as well add the sidebar, because we need to have the sidebar here, which will list the random posts, related random posts. So because in our views, we have, we are checking for random posts, and we passed those random posts as the context to the detail template. Okay, so let's create the section. So below that, we want to create a sidebar. So we'll say aside. Then we have a div, and then below that div, we will have a h3. Inside that h3, we will say related articles. Then below that h3, we will open another div. So inside this div, we are going to loop through all posts that are in random posts. So we are going to use a for loop. So we'll say for related in random posts. So we have to close the for loop. So we say end for, and then we need to have a href tag. And this href tag, we will have that absolute URL. So we'll say related dot get absolute URL, okay. And then inside that href tag, we need to have our image, so our mg, and the source will be open those curly braces and say related dot image dot URL, okay. And then the alternative text, if the image doesn't load up, will be related dot title, okay. And then below that image, we will have h4 that will have our related title, post title. So we'll say related dot title, okay, and that is it. So let's refresh and see how it looks. We refresh, you will see we have the related here. So we will style this page so that this related can be at this side, okay. So let's get into it. So let's start with the outermost div. Okay, so I think we missed out. So let's cut this aside, cut it, and then from the article below this div, below that div, let's add that side there. So it will be like this, okay. So let's now refresh it. Still the same, yes, but it's more leaving the spaces. So let's style this div, the outermost div. So for large screens, let's create a breakpoint, and say for large screens, we want it to be flex, and then we want to have a gap of 8. Okay, so it will be side by side, the article on the left side and the related articles on the right side. So if we refresh this, nothing of essence being shown. So let's continue. And then here, oh, okay, this should be class. Sorry for that. So this should be class equals to, on large screens, we have these to be flex, and then the gap to be 8. Okay, so let's try again and see, refresh this. Okay, still the same. So let's continue. And then let's style this div again. So for this div, which will hold our main content, we want to have on large screens, say class. On large screens, we want the width to be the 3/4. So 3/4. Okay. And then now let's style the article. So we say class. We want to have a background white. We want to have a padding of 8 all round. We want to have edges rounded LG, and then we have we want to have a shadow to be MD. Let's style the header, say class. We want to have a margin bottom MB of 8. Let's style our h1 tag that will contain the post title. So we'll say class equals to, we want the text size to be 3XL. We want the font weight to be bold. And then we want to have a margin bottom of 4. Let's style the div that is containing our published date. So we say class equals to, we want this to be in flex display, and then we center the items. So items center, and then let's have a space at x-axis to be 4. Let's give it a color, so we say text gray 500. Okay, so far let's refresh and see what is happening. So we refresh, you can see we have these nicely styled, we have these, and then we have these related articles on the right side. Okay, so you can see it's coming along. And then now let's style our image. So our image here, let me close this. Say here is our image. Let's have a class equals to, then we want to have a margin bottom of 8. We want to have our edges to be rounded, so rounded to be LG. And then we want to give it a shadow, so we say shadow, which will be LG, that is large. And then we want it to cover the entire width, so we'll say width full. Once we do that, we need as well have a way on how it loads. So we say loading, we want to use lazy. Okay, and finally we want to have this CK content as it is. We don't have to style it. So if we refresh, you can see this part is really looking nice. Maybe we can change the color of this text, maybe the font. So if we go here, we can say class font family, so we say font sans and say text color to be gray, so use gray 800. Let's see how it looks. Refresh. Yes, now it looks a little bit better. Okay, now let's style this part here, the sidebar part. Here is the sidebar side, so we start with the side. So we say class equals to, and then we want this side to take a quarter of the width. Remember, we had given 3/4 of the main content, so we want to give these on large screens a quarter. So we'll say LG, that is a breakpoint for large screens. We want to have a width of 1/4, and then let's have a margin top of 8, and then let's have on large screens we want to have a margin at the top to be 0, so MT is 0. Now let's style the this div. So we'll say class equals to, and then we want to have a background of white. We want to have a padding all round, that is padding top, bottom, left, right to be 6. And then we want to have rounded at the edges to be large. And then we want to add a shadow to it. So say shadow MD. Okay. Then let's style this to H3. So for the H3, we say class. And then we say text LG, which is large. We want this text size to be large. And then we want the font to be semi-bold. And then we want to have a margin bottom of 4 to have a space at the bottom. Okay, let's style this div. So we'll have a class and say we want to have a space, since we want to stack these related posts on top of each other, so we want the space in between them. So we are going to use space on the y-axis. So we'll say space y-axis to be 4. Okay, and then now let's style this href. So here we'll have a class, then we want to say this is a block, and then it's a group. We have the image, we need to style this image. So we'll say class equals to, we want this image to take the entire width. So we say width to be full, and then we say we want the height to be 32 pixels, and then we want it to cover the entire width. So object cover, then we want the edges to be rounded large. Then we want to have a margin at the bottom of, we also want to have a loading. So loading equals to lazy loading. Now let's style this h4 tag. So we'll say class equals to, so we want to have a text color, say text to be gray 800. And then we want to have a group hover. We want to have a text to be blue. So text blue 500. Then we want to have transition colors. So let's refresh and see how it looks. Here, if we refresh, you can see the images are not loaded. Let's check. We have image related dot image. Okay, let me remove this one period. Okay, so refresh this. You can see we have the related articles on the right side. And if I click on this, I open that, you can see the opened object is excluded from the related articles, and you can see they are randomized. Okay, they are randomized completely. Okay, so that is it for now. You can see we have created a product detail page, and as well we have managed to create these canonical URLs, and as well we have managed to create these random related articles on the right side. So on the next, we are going to build the navbar and then the footer, and then after that we are going to implement Elasticsearch functionality. Now let's create our navigation bar at the top here. So it will be a very simple navigation bar. So to do that, I normally like to have, let's go to our base, and at the top, let's create a folder. Let's create a folder inside our templates and call that folder includes. And inside that folder called includes, let's have a template called navbar.html. Okay, now here is where we are going to create our navbar. Okay, so we'll say nav, then below nav we have a div. Below that div we open another div, then we open another div, and this div will have a href. Inside that href, this will be our home, so this will contain the logo. So let me call this a tech blog. And then below this div, we open another div, and then we have href again. This will contain all the posts. So we have this URL, these articles. So we'll copy this. Then let me close this. So here we will have URL articles, and then here we'll have articles. And then below that, we want to create a search bar. So we'll have a form, and then inside that form we will have an input. The type will be text. We'll add the names later, and then below that input we will have a button which will be search. This button will be of type submit. Okay, once we have done that, let's go to our base.html, and then let's include that. Right above the block content, we need to include our navbar. So we'll say include, and then includes navbar.html. So let's refresh and see. If we refresh this, you can see at the top we have this navbar, we have the search. We haven't styled it yet. So if we click these articles, we go home. Okay, so let's style this navbar. So we open the navbar. Let's start with the nav. So class, we want to give it a background of white, and then we want to give it a shadow LG. Let's style the second div. We want a class, and then we give it a max width. So max width of 7XL. Then we want to have MX auto. Then we want to have a padding at x-axis of 4. Let's have a breakpoint of small screens. We want to have a padding at x-axis of 6. And then LG, in large screens, we want to have padding axis of 8. Okay, and then let's style the second div. So the second div, we have a class. This second div has this div, and then has another div that contains the form. So we need to have these divs side by side. So we are going to use flex. So class flex, and then let's center the items. So items center, and then let's let's remove these. So we want them side by side. So we are using flex, and then we want them to be this tech blog name to be on the right side, and then the form to be on the right side. Okay, so we are going to use justify between. So we say justify between, so that we can have the space between these divs. And then let's give it a height of 16. Okay, So let's check it out. By refresh, you can see we have tech blog on the right, on the left side. Then we have this article and the search on the right side. So we go back. Let's now style the tech blog. Okay. So here we say class. This will be flex. Let's center the items. So we say items, center, and then let's style this href link. So we say class equals to, and then let's give it a font size. We say text to be 2XL, and then we want to have a font to be bold, and then let's give it a text gray of 800. Okay, so let's see how it looks. So we come here and refresh. So you can see we have these big, you can see this tech blog. So this, you can replace this with your logo or anything. Okay, and then let's move on to this div now, which contains our link to the articles and as well our search input. So here we want as well this to be side by side. We want the article to be side by side with the form. So we are going to use class flex. So we'll be flex, and then we say items to be center, and then we will have a space at x-axis to be 8. Okay, let's style this. Let's style this article. So here we'll say class equals to, we have the text to be gray 800. Text, let me put it at 600, and then let's give it a hover effect. So we say hover text to be gray 900. Okay, now let's style our form. Say this, we say this class equals to flex. We want the input and the search button to be side by side again. Let's refresh this. So you can see we have this input article, and then we have these side by side with the search button. So let's style the input and the search button. So input, let's give it a placeholder. So we say placeholder be search. Okay, now let's give it a class. We want to have a padding at x-axis of 4, padding at y-axis of 2. We want to have the borders. So we say border, and then we want to have this bordered rounded. So we say rounded L, rounded left to be large. We also want to add focus. So we don't want to have an outline during the focus. So we say focus outline to be none, and then let's have a focus ring to be 2, and then let's have that focus ring color. So we say focus ring to be blue 500. Okay, let's style the search button. So first we need to give the type of this button. So we say type to be submit, and then let's have a class. Want to have a padding at x-axis of 4, padding over y-axis of 2. We want to have a background of blue 500. We want to have a text white, and then we want to have a rounded at the right side. So rounded right to be LG. Let's have a hover effect. When you hover, we want to change the background to blue 600. Okay, so that is our navbar. So let's refresh and see how it looks. Refreshing, you can see now we have these. You can replace these with your logo. Then we have the articles, and then we have these nice search input, and then we have the button for search. Okay, so you just type in and then search. We are going to implement the search functionality here. So you click there. So you can see we can open an article. This is our article, and you can see we have the article content on the left side, and we have related content on the right side. So this is complete blog website. Then now we need to create a navbar. Okay, for all these we need to create a navbar. So to create a navbar, we are going to create not a navbar, a footer. So we want to create a footer. We want to make it as simple as possible. So at the base.html, we want to create a footer. So we'll say footer, and then below that footer we'll have a div, and then below that div we'll have a p tag. Inside that p tag we'll have that copy. Say copy, so that it can create that C, and then we'll pass in the year, say 2025 tech blog, and then we'll say all rights reserved. Okay, so let's style this. Let's style this quickly. Say class equals to, we have a background of white. Then we have a border top. We want to have a border top, and say we have a margin top of 12. Let's check it out. So we refresh, go down, you can see we have these border, then we have these. Okay, that is our footer. So let's style that footer. Then let's style this div. We have a class. We want to have a max width. So max width of 7XL, MX auto to center everything. Then let's have a PY at 8. PY axis, that is padding at Y axis. Let's have a padding at X axis to be 4. Let's have a breakpoint for smaller screens. So we say we want padding at X axis of 6, and on large screens we want to have a padding X axis of 8. Let's center everything. So text center, we center the text, and then let's give that text a color. So text gray 600. Okay, so let's refresh this. Refresh, you can see we have these very basic footer. We have the navbar, so this navbar should cover from end to end the way this is covering. So what to do, let's try to remove this navbar from the inside main content. Let's cut it and place it right below the body opening tag. Okay, then let's refresh and see. Yes, now it looks more professional. Okay, so now it looks better than when it was within the main content. Okay, so we have this. So to go through what we have covered, the functionalities that we have created a view that helps us to display all the posts that have been posted, and then we have a function to show the pagination. Okay, so you can see we have this pagination working. We have a footer, we have a navbar. The next part that we are going, which was the main essence of this video, is on how to integrate Elasticsearch with your Django project. Okay, so we are going to cover that step by step. So just to remind you, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing so that you can promote this channel to grow, and as well turn that notification bell so that you don't miss out whenever I post a new video. Okay, so let's move on. Now we move on into creating search functionality using Elasticsearch. So to do that, I have pushed the code of this tutorial to my GitHub. So to get that GitHub code, so I will leave the link to that project in my video description. So this is the project. And as well I've written a README documentation on how to install this. So first you can see Django Elastic Integration Project. You can see prerequisites. You must have Python 3.8 and above, Django 4.0 and above, Elasticsearch 8.x and above on Debian for Elastic installation, and Ubuntu. Okay, so what to do? Ensure you follow these README to install Elasticsearch into your machine. For those who are using Debian, you can just copy these and then install into your machine. Configure Elasticsearch to start automatically on boot. You can see this, and then you can check. You can as well generate passwords. You can just follow all these and then configure this file so that it can be working correctly, and then restart this. Okay. So, and then once you have done all this, once you have done the installation until this part, okay, so you can check if Elasticsearch is running on your machine. Okay, so in my example, I have already installed Elasticsearch, so I don't have to repeat the same. So I want to check if Elasticsearch is running on my machine. So sudo system stl status Elasticsearch, input your password. Okay, so you can see my Elasticsearch service, which is Elasticsearch. It is active and running. You can see it is enabled upon boot. Okay, so if you follow all those steps that I've shown, I will leave this link to this repository on the video description. So you download and install Elasticsearch. You configure Elasticsearch to start automatically on boot. And then you verify if Elasticsearch is running. You can use this, and then you should be able to see something like this. You can secure your Elasticsearch. You can generate the password using that, and then configure TLS for secure communication. And then you update elasticsearch.uml file with the following, okay? And then you can restart it. So once you have done that, the next thing that you need to do, configure Elasticsearch in Django, okay? So to do that, we need to install Django Elasticsearch DSL. So I'm going to copy this and head to the terminal. So let me stop the server and clear the terminal. I will install that Django Elasticsearch DSL. Hit enter. Give it a few seconds to install. Once it has installed, so let me just close all this. Once it has installed, now we need to include it inside our settings, installed apps. So let's scroll up to these installed apps. Just below static files, we need to add this. We say Django Elasticsearch DSL. Okay, so we have added that. Then the next thing that we want to do, we need to configure the default hosts of this Elasticsearch. Since we are using our machine as our host, so this is what you are going to do. We're going to say Elasticsearch DSL equals to, you open a dictionary and say default. Okay, so our default, we want to have hosts. We say hosts, and then our host will be our local server. So our host will be HTTP. Then you pass in the user. If you created the password, you pass this password and then at localhost, and then we give it a port. So Elasticsearch is listening on port 9200. That is the only configuration that you need to do for now. Then now let's run the server. Okay, so we want to create now search functionality using Elasticsearch. So we are going to go back to our app, which is posts, and then add some few files. So we need to create a documents file. So inside the posts, let's create documents.py file. And then inside the document.py file, we need to import the document and fields from Elasticsearch DSL. So we are going to say from Django Elasticsearch DSL import document and then fields. Okay, and then as well we want to import the registry. So we need to say from Django DSL search Elasticsearch DSL dot registries import registry. Okay, and then we need to import our model. So we say from dot models import post. Okay, and then we need to install a beautiful soup for HTML stripping. So to do that, let's go to Python package index or Python package index and say we want to install beautiful soup. We search for beautiful soup. Okay, soup, beautiful soup here, this one. So the one that we want is this one, beautiful soup 4. So copy that. Once we copy it, let's go to our terminal. Let me stop the server, paste it, give it some few seconds to install. Then now we need to import that beautiful soup to help us strip HTML. So we'll say from BS4 import beautiful soup. Okay, now let's create our registry document. So we say at registry.register document. And then we need to create a class of the post document. So post document, which inherits the document. So we have used the decorator registers, this document with Django Elasticsearch integration, and we have defined a post document class that maps the Elasticsearch index. Okay, so this class, we want to have Elasticsearch document mapping with optimized text analysis and HTML processing. Okay, so now we need to define the title. So we say title equals to fields dot text field. So we are defining the title field with the English analyzer. So to do that, we need to say analyzer to be English, analyzer equals to English. And then as well, we want to have multi-fields with both analyzed text and the raw keyword version. So we'll say fields equals to, and then we open the curly braces, we say the keyword, and then the value of that keyword will be fields dot keyword field. Okay, so basically here we have defined title field with English analyzer, which will help analyze for text processing or stemming, stopping words, etc. And then we have a multi-field with both analyzed and raw keyword versions. Similar to text fields for body and intro content, both using analyzer English analyzer. Okay, so we need to add the body equals to fields dot text field, and then we pass in the analyzer. Analyzer will be English. We do the same, so I'm going to copy this for the intro. So see, we paste this. So let me say this is an intro. So similarly with the title, you can see this text field for body and intro content, both are using English as their analyzer. Okay, now we need to index. We need to index this. So we need to index. So we need to do index configuration here. So we'll say class index, and then we want to give the name. So name of the index be posts. So we'll say name equals to posts, and then we need to set some practical defaults for development. So we say settings equals to, then we need to have number of shards. So one shard, no need for multiple in development. So we say number of shards to be 1, number of shards to be 1. Okay, so these should be within the quotes. Then we need to have number of replicas. So number of replicas should be in quotes. So number of replicas, we want it to be 0. And then we want to balance between freshness and performance. So we'll say refresh interval to be 30 seconds. Okay, so here we have set practical default for development here. So we have one shard, no need for multiple. We have 0 replicas, so that means no redundancy needed in development. Then we have a 30-second refresh for better performance than in immediate indexing. And then now we need to have Django model integration. So below this, we'll have a class Django. So we'll say class Django, and then we need to define our model. Model will be post. And then we give the fields. We are linking to post model, and then automatically includes published date and status field. So to automatically include those fields, we need to define them. So we'll say fields equals to publish, and then we have the status. Okay, then we have to have related models, and we leave it empty. So we say related models equals to is an empty list. So here, what we have done here basically is we have integrated the model into Django by linking the post model, okay, and as well automatically including published date and status fields, and as well we have added this empty related model list to indicate no automatic relationship indexing. Okay, then now since we are using CK editor inside our post, so we need to customize field preparation to process the body content before indexing. So to do that, we need to create a function. So div say prepare body, then we pass in self, then text in instance as our parameter. Then we need to strip HTML tags and normalize white spaces for better indexing. So we are going to use a beautiful soup. So we'll say soup equals to beautiful soup. Then we pass in the instance, which will be our body. So instance dot body. Okay, and then we pass in HTML parser. Okay, to extract text only, strip all HTML tags. Okay, so here we are comma, and then we pass in HTML dot parser. Okay, and now we return an empty string. We join the text fragment with a single space. So we use that empty string with one space in it, and we use join. Then we pass in the soup dot stripped strings. Okay. So basically here we have created a custom field preparation to process the body content before indexing. So the first part here we passes HTML with beautiful soup, and then extracts text only, stripping all the HTML tags, and then here we join text fragments with single spaces, and then the result is cleaner text for search analysis. Okay, so here multi-field mapping is for both title, both analyzed and extracted, match versions, and then language aware analysis. We are using English. Then we have HTML sanitization for clean text indexing, and then we have development. We have these settings for development optimized index settings. So these are the save defaults. And then we have selective field inclusion for Django model. We have included published and status. And then lastly, we have custom preprocessing for better search quality. Okay, so this entire configuration of this document file will enable us to full text search with English language understanding, and then we can be able to get exact match searches on title, clean search results unaffected by HTML markup. That is why we use a beautiful soup. And then lastly, we have a reasonable indexing performance for development, since we have added these settings. Okay, so once we have done that, we need to create signals to update this document upon saving. Okay, so inside our app we are going to create signals. So inside posts we need to create a file called signals.py. So signals will help us to have a reliable search synchronization while we properly handle edges cases and providing operational visibility. Okay, so these will help us have synchronization guarantees. Okay, so let's create the signals. So we want to create those indexes upon saving. So we need to do some imports. So the first import that we want to do is from Django Elasticsearch. We need to import post save and post delete from signals. So from django.db.models.signals import post save and post delete. Okay, we also want to import the receiver from the dispatch. So we'll say from Django.dispatch import receiver. We also want to import not found error exception from Elasticsearch. So we'll say from Elasticsearch import post. Okay, not import post, from Elasticsearch.exceptions import not found error. Then we need to import our model. So we say from .models import our model is post, and then we need to import the document we just created. So we'll say from .documents import post document. Okay, so we have imported post save and post delete from Django signals that fire after model is saved or deleted. Okay, and then we have imported the receiver, which is a decorator to connect signal handlers, and then we have not found error from Elasticsearch exception for missing documents, and then we have our post and post document, your model, which is our model, and Elasticsearch document class. Okay, we can as well add some login so that we can log the operations. So we say import logging. Now let's set up the logger. So let's create a module specific logger for tracking Elasticsearch sync operations. So we'll say logger equals to say logging dot get logger. Okay, and then we pass in the name. Okay, now we need to have update a signal handler. So we need to have a way to trigger after any post has been saved or created or updated, the signal attempts to update the corresponding Elasticsearch document. Okay, so let's create that. So we have to use the decorator receiver. So we say receiver, then we say post save. So this is the behavior once it's saved. Then let's have a sender, which will be the post. Let's have a signal handler to update Elastic document when a post is saved. So we'll say dev update document. Okay, and then we will have the sender passing the instance as a parameter. Let's have keyword arguments. Now we are going to use try and exception a block. So we'll say try, and then let me have a pass. Let's have except exception as E, and then we need to log that. We need to log that exception. So we are using the logger. So we say logger.error. Okay, let's format that. You can say failed to update Elasticsearch document for post, and then we pass in the instance ID, instance.id, and then we need to show that exception. Now in our try block, here, we need to have a post document to update. Okay, so we say post document dot update, and then we pass in the instance, and then we can log in. We say logger.debug, then we have this. We say successfully updated Elasticsearch document for post, and then we pass in the instance ID, instance.id. Okay, so in behavior, this function will trigger after any post save or any post has been created or updated. It will trigger this, so that this will update the corresponding Elasticsearch document, and then it will log in debug mode if it successfully updates, and if there is an error, it will log that error if there is any failures during updating. Okay, so the key points here is we use post document. We use this post document function dot update to keep Elasticsearch in sync, and then we handle all exceptions generically, since any failure should be investigated. Okay, and then we have the debug logging, this one, which will help verify synchronization during development. Okay, now let's create a delete signal handler. So we have created update signal handler. Now we create the delete signal handler, which will handle delete Elastic document when a post is deleted. So we will do the same. So we'll have a receiver as our decorator. So we say receiver, and then we pass in post delete. Remember, for update we passed in post save. Then we will have the sender. Sender will be the post. Okay, and then let's have that function. So div delete document. So this function will be triggered if the post will be deleted, as well the Elasticsearch document should be deleted. Okay, and then we'll say sender. Then we pass in the instance. We pass in the keywords argument. Then we will have a try except. So we'll say try. Then I will pass this, and I want to accept if there is no. Remember, we had imported this not found error from Elasticsearch exceptions. So if there is no document related to that post that has been deleted, then we should have that except. So we say except not found error, this one. Okay, and then let's log that in. So we say logger, that will be our warning. So we say warning. We will have this and say Elasticsearch document for post, and then we pass in that instance ID. So we say instance.id, and then we say not found. We can add something like it may have been deleted. We also want to log any other exceptions that may occur that we haven't covered. So we'll say except exception as E. Then we log in. So we say logger.error. Then we pass, we format this and say failed to delete Elasticsearch document for post, and then we pass in the instance ID. We say instance.id, and then we give that exception. Okay. Now let's go back to this, which will be updating that, which will be deleting that Elasticsearch document. So we'll say post document, okay, and then we say dot delete. And then we pass in the ID of the instance. So ID will be equals to instance dot ID. Then we log in. We say logger dot debug. Then we say we format this and say successfully deleted Elasticsearch document for post, and then we pass in the instance ID. We say instance.id. So the behavior is it triggers after the post has been deleted. So this function will only be triggered once the post has been deleted, and then it attempts to delete the corresponding Elasticsearch document, and we have a special handling for not found error. These ones about already deleted documents. Then we have these other exceptions that logs as error. So the key points here, we have explicitly handled the case where the document is already gone here, and then we have more granular exception handling, this one, and then we prevent orphaned document in Elasticsearch. Okay, so by using the signals, we have ensured that Elasticsearch stays in sync with database changes, and then it handles both creation and deletion. Okay, we are as well preventing signal failures from crashing the application and provide visibility into synchronization issues via login. So that is why we are using the logger. And then we have added the performance considerations. So signals execute synchronously, consider a sync task for high volume systems, and the bulk operation won't trigger this, need separate handling. Okay, so and then we have logging levels. We have the debug for normal operation tracking. So after creating the signals, we should import those signals into our apps. Yeah, apps ready method. So here we'll say div ready, and then let me remove this. Say import signals. So here we will import posts dot signals. So once we have done that, our signals are ready to rock. And then the next thing that we want to do, so once we have created these signals and we have added them in our apps.py under these ready method, our signals are ready to go. So the next thing that we want to do is to create forms. So to create form inside our posts app, we need to create another file called forms.py. Okay, so in this form we are going to use Django forms. So from Django import forms. Okay, and then we want to create a search form. So we'll say class search form, and then it will inherit forms.form. Is forms. And then let's have our query. So we'll say our query equals to forms dot character field, and then let's have a label equals to search. Let's have a max length of 255, and then you cannot submit this form without having the query inside. So we say required equals to true. Okay, once we have done that, now we need to go to our views. And create search view. So we need to create this, we need to create a search view. Before we do that, we need to import the form. So we need to do some importation. So the first importation that we want to do is from.form, import from.forms, import search form. Okay, and then now we create our search function. So we'll say div post search, which will take HTTP request. So this search will be Elastic powered search with relevant sorting and query optimization. So this Django view function will be handling search requests, and it will be using Elasticsearch for full text search with relevant scoring. Okay, next we want to initialize the form. So we say form equals to search form, which will create a search form instance with get parameter or none if no get data. So will be request dot get or none. Okay, so we are doing form initialization, and then we also need to initialize an empty results list as a fallback. So we say results equals to an empty list. Next, we want to validate this form. So to validate it, we have to have a check and say if form dot is valid, then if that form is valid, only that time we can proceed with search if the submitted form data is valid, and implicitly validates CSRF token and any other field validation. And now let us process the query. So we'll say query equals to form dot cleaned data, and then we pass in that query. Okay, This extracts the sanitized search query from the data. Now let's have Elasticsearch query construction. So let's construct that. So we'll say search equals to, we need to import our document. So we'll say from documents, from documents import post document. So we are going to use that. So we'll say post document dot search dot query, and then we will create a multi-field match query. So we'll have this multi-match, then we'll pass in our query equals to query, and then we will have the fields that we want to look up. So fields, we want to check the title, we want to check the body, and then we also want to check that text if it is in intro. Then let's have the fuzziness. So fuzziness equals to, so here the post document search starts a new search on the post index. Then we have the query mult search, all these. This one will create a multiple field match query. Then we have this query right here, which searches for the user's input is one. And then we have the field. These fields specifies a field with boost factors. We have boost factors like 3, 2, and then we have the title. Matches in title are 3 times more important, and then matches on the body are 2 times more important. That is why we have this. Then intro, we have no boosting, so normal importance. And then we have this fuzziness equals to auto. This enables smart fuzzy matches for typos. And now we need to start processing the results. So here we need to start processing the results. Right below here we'll say results equals to search dot to query set dot only. Then we want just the title, we want the slug, we as well want the intro image, then the date of publishing, so publish. Okay, so here we are processing the results. So to query function, this one converts elastic results to Django query set. Okay, and then we have this only. Okay, this optimizes the database query by selecting only needed fields, and these needed fields are title, slug, intro, image, and publish. So this is to ensure that we reduce the memory usage and minimize data transfer from the database. And now lastly, we need to render the template. To do that, we need to say return render, and then we say text in the request, and then we want to give it the location of that template. So posts / search.html. Okay, let's pass in the context. Our context, we want to have a form, say form. Then we also want to have the results, and then we also want to pass in the query. So we say query, and then say form.cleanedData.get, say this query, and then we also need to pass in the empty string. Okay, so this returns the response with the search form for displaying errors and new searches. We have the results, which is an empty list if no search performed. And then we have the original query for displaying back to the user the query that the user inputted. So these key features include, we have added the relevance ranking. So you can see we have this relevance ranking. We have the title matches the weight of 3 times more than the body, and then introduction. Okay. We have the fastness, and also we have optimized performance. Okay. So once we have done this, the next thing that we want to do is to create the URL for this. So we are going to go to the URLs file, and then add the search path. So we add a comma here, and then go to path, say search, say views dot post search, then we give it a name equals to post search. Okay, once we have done that, we need to go to our search input. We added our search input. Let me run the server so that we can see it. So python.py run server. So if we go here, if we refresh, we'll be able to see our search input is at the nav bar, navigation bar. So we need to go to the navigation bar. So we need to go to the navigation bar. Our navigation bar is inside includes. Click on the navigation bar. We can add the action to the form. Okay, so inside our form we have the action and then the method. Okay, so these are the things. So for the action, we are adding the URL. So we'll say URL post search. Okay, and then the method is get, because we are getting these posts from the database. So we say method equals to get. Okay, and then we have these button submit. Then once we have done that, we need to create now the template. We need to create search template. So inside our posts, remember we had defined, let me close this. In our views, we had said that our search template will be inside the posts. So we go to the posts right here, and then create search.html. Okay, so let me close this, close all this, search. So let's extend base.html, and then we have a block title. Block title will be search results. Then below that we'll have a block content. Okay, so here let me say something like h1 before we start showing to test if our Elasticsearch is working. So we'll say something like search is working. So when we search at the nav bar and then directed to this page, we will know that our search is working. Before we do that, we need to rebuild our indexes. So let's go back to our documentation. We have done all this. Now we need to build the Elasticsearch index. So copy this, and then let's go to our terminal. Let me stop this, or let me open another one. So cd blog clear, and then I will paste that in python manage.py search index rebuild. Okay, so let me hit enter, wait some few seconds. So you can see, are you sure you want to delete the post indices? Let me say yes. I had already done the same thing, so I have to delete them first. So you can see we have deleted and then recreated those indexes. Okay, so we have indexed 7 posts. So these are the posts that are in our database. Okay, so let's now try to test the search. So let me refresh this, and then let's try to search for JavaScript. Okay, there is an issue here. Search value post views.post didn't return an HTTP response subject. It is none. So let's see what happened. So we have initialized the date, the form. We have the results. We have validated the form, passed in the query, constructed the Elasticsearch, okay, search query, and then we have multi-match, query equals to query fields. We have added those important scores. Then we have the results, search to convert them to Django query set. Then we are targeting the specific fields to optimize the database. Then we return render request, post search.html, then we pass in the form, results, then query. Okay, so let's style this completely, so that maybe that is why not return anything. So let's style this. So inside our block content, we need to have a div, and inside that div we need to have h1. Inside that h1 will say search results. And then we also need to add a form. So we'll say form, and then our method of this form, say method equals to get. Inside that form, we want to have an input with type text, and the name equals to query. Okay, and then we need to add a value equals to query. Okay, and then let's go back to our nav bar. I think I've gotten where the issue is. You can see we did not pass the name. Okay, inside our input we need to pass the name. So right before the type text, let's have the name equals to query. Okay, so let's try again. Yes, we didn't have the query, so let's try again. JavaScript search, you can see the results. Okay, and then you can see this here, we have the query equals to JavaScript. The other time, the reason we were getting that error is because I forgot to add the name query inside our input object. Okay, so let's continue styling this. Let's add a placeholder here. So placeholder equals to, let's say, search articles, and then let's have a button, say button, and this button will be search. So this button will have a type submit, so type submit, and then below that we need to list below the, so I think there is somewhere, so here I need to cut the form and create another div, and inside that div we add our form. Okay, so that here we'll be using flex display so that the input and the button are side by side. Okay, and then below this we need to show the results. So to show the results, we need to check if there is a result. So here we'll say if, we are going to use if condition. So we'll say if results, let's close that if statement. So we say and if. Okay, if there is a result, then we show this. We open the div. Then inside that div, we need to loop through the results to display them. So we'll say for result in results, let's close that for loop, say end for. And then inside that loop, we want to have article. And then inside that article, we want to have a href link. Inside that link, we are going to use results.get absolute URL. Okay, and inside that we need to have h2 tag to contain the title of the result. So we'll say result.title, and then below this we need to have the time. So we remove this time date. Inside this we'll have result.publish, and then we format that date. Say date. Say we want to have a month, day, then the year. Okay, and then below that we need to have a p tag which will contain the introduction. So we'll say result.intro, but we want as well to truncate these intro characters so that if the introduction is too long, it is being truncated. Okay, we use the pipe and say truncate characters, so chars, and then we input 200. Once it reaches 200 characters, it truncates. Okay, and then below this and if we want below this and for, right below this we want to have else statement. Else means if there is no results, we need to give a message out. Okay, so we say div, and then inside that we say p and say no results found for, then we pass in the query. Okay, so if you searched JavaScript and there is no results, you will get no results for JavaScript. Okay, and that is it. So let's try this again. So if I refresh this, I'll be able to see all posts that contain JavaScript. Okay, so let me try to search something. Let's say I want to search 0, but I have a typo. Okay, and see if Elasticsearch will catch this and give us this post. So you can see it has given those posts zero, but we have 0 here, we have 0 here, and we have zeros in these other posts. So that means our search, Elasticsearch is working. This is due if you have a typo on any word, Elasticsearch will help you find it thanks to this fuzziness auto. Okay, and then let's search something that we cannot find here. Let's try index. You can see we have index, no results found for index. Okay, our Elasticsearch functionality is working perfectly. Okay, so let's style this search template so that it can look professional and attractive. You go to search. Let's start by styling from the above. So we start with class equals to, we want to have a max width. We say max width of 3XL. We want to have MX to be auto. And then let's style this H1, say class equals to, and then we have text 3XL. Okay, we want to have a font to be bold, and then we want to have a margin bottom of 8. Let's style this div. So in this div, we want to style the form. I think we need to remove this div. Okay, so we need to remove this div. So I'm going to cut this, Control X. Let's add another div inside our form like that. Okay, so let's style the form. Let's remove this action. So we style that. We say class. We want to have a margin bottom of 12. Then let's style this div. This div, we want to have a class of flex so that the input and the button can be side by side. And then let's style the input. So we say class of the input. We want to have a width full. So we say width full. And then we have padding at x-axis of 4. Padding of y-axis of 3. And then we want to have a border. Then we want it to be rounded on the left. So we say rounded, the left corners large. Then we want to have an outline. So we say focus, outline none, outline to be none. And then we want to have a focus ring. So focus, say ring 2. And then we want to have a focus color of that ring. So focus ring to be blue 500. Let's style this button. So the button type is submit. So we say serve this class. Then we'll say we have a padding at x-axis of 6, padding at y-axis of 3. Then we have a background of blue 500. And then we have a text white. Rounded, we want to have those rounded corners at the right. So we say rounded R, LG. Let's have a hover effect. So we say hover. Background to be blue 600. Okay, so let's see how it looks. Refresh here. You can see we have this search index, search input. Let's try to search. It's working. Let's search JavaScript. Search. You can see it is as well working. So let's style these results. So we go to the results here. Let's style this, the first div, say class. Want to have a space at y-axis. So space y-axis of 8. Then let's style the article. Say class equals to, let's have a background of white. Let's have a padding all round of 6. Let's have a rounded edges to be LG, and then shadow to be MD. Okay, let's style these href. So we say class. We want this to be block on top of each other. Let's style the h2. Say class. We give it a text size. So we say text will be XL, and then we want font to be semi-bold, and then we want to have a text gray 800, and then let's give it a hover effect. So we say hover text to be blue 500. Okay, let's style this time. So here we'll say class. We make this small, so text to be small, SM, and then we give it a color. We say text gray 500, right? Let's style this intro. Okay, so we say class. We want to have space at the top, so we will say margin top of 2. Then we need to have a text gray 600. Okay, and then lastly, let's style this div which shows if there is no results. So we say class equals to text center, and then we have a padding at y-axis of 12. Let's style this p tag. Say class equals to text gray 600. Okay, so this is our search template. We have styled it. So let me refresh this. This is our results of our search. Okay, so we can search something else. You can say 0. You can get all the posts that contain 0 within the title, the body, and in the intro. So if we search something that does not exist, we get these. No results found for these. And as well, if we have a typo inside our spelling, so for example, I can say instead of searching JavaScript, let's say JavaScript instead of I have O search. You can see our Elasticsearch is smart enough to get this typo. Anyway, it gives you the correct one, JavaScript. Okay, so that is the advantages of using the Elasticsearch. Okay, so that is it, guys. We have created the entire blog website. We also have the back end of it here. This will allow the administrators to add their posts, and then this is the front end. This post will be shown here. We have the paginations. Once this page has 6 posts, it automatically creates this pagination. So if you click this pagination, it takes you to the next page. We have a way to open the post to see the post details and read it. And then on the right side, we have the related articles, which are frequently randomized. Okay, we have implemented the search functionality, which is incorporated with Django Elastic DSL. So that is it, guys. So the advantages, just to mention the advantages of using Elasticsearch. So the advantages of using Elasticsearch, I just asked a DeepSeek to give me the advantages of using Elasticsearch. So number 1, full text search capabilities. It supports advanced text search, fuzzy matching, stemming, synonyms, phrase matching, better than Django iContains or PostgreSQL TS vector. And then we have number 2, high performance and scalability. It is optimized for fast search queries, even on large data sets. It handles millions of documents efficiently with distributed indexing. And then it has relevancy scoring and ranking, boosts certain field, e.g. title, more important than the body. We did that. Use TF, IDF, that is term frequency inverse, document frequency, and BM25 for better relevance. Real-time indexing, near instant updates when new data is added or compared to slow database search. We used the signals. And then we have flexible querying, supports complex querying, Boolean, wildcard, regex, geospatial. Aggregation for analytics, grouping, filtering, stats. It handles typos, we have demonstrated that, and partial matches. Fuzzy search, fuzziness auto corrects users' typos. Autocomplete and suggestions possible with n-grams. Works well with Django RM. Libraries like Django Elastic DSL integrate smoothly, so we have integrated this in this video. Scale for high traffic, can be clustered for distributed search across multiple nodes. Okay, this is when you go production. So we have the disadvantages of using Elasticsearch with Django. Anything good, there is the other side. So the other side of Elasticsearch is this additional infrastructure complexity. It requires a separate Elasticsearch, unlike PostgreSQL search, which is built in. So remember, this Elasticsearch is running on my machine. That is why you saw how we integrated, we integrated and installed it in our machine. So it is running on machine as our server. Okay. So when it comes to production, you will need to run it on a separate server. So needs configuration, scaling, and maintenance. You saw we did some configurations, and even during, if we go to this project, you can see we have various in configuration of it. You can see this. Okay, you can see these configurations before you use it. Okay, and you need to scale it frequently and maintain. And then it has data synchronization overhead, must keep Elasticsearch in sync with Django database. We did this using signals or sync tasks. You can use this, you can use Celery in production so that you can ensure that it is in sync with the database. And it has a risk of stale data if sync fails. So if the signals don't update upon deletion or creation, then you will have this tail data. High memory and storage use stores inverted indexes which can consume significant RAM and disk space. That is the truth. And then it has a very big learning curve. It requires understanding Elasticsearch DSL, different from SQL or Django ORM. Tuning relevance can be complex. You have seen, we have tried actually. So not ideal for transaction data, best for search heavy apps, not for frequent writes and updates. It does not have ACID compliance unlike relational databases, and then it has potential overkill for small projects. So in a small project you use this, it is an overkill. So for us we did an overkill for it because we are having a very small project just for blog posts. So the main idea for this video was to show you that you can integrate your Elasticsearch to any of your Django project, but it was an overkill for this small project. And then costs. So you may need AWS search, Elastic Cloud, etc. It is expensive. So that is why those are the disadvantages. When to use Elasticsearch with Django, best for large scale application with the heavy search requirement, e.g. e-commerce, blogs. Okay, we were not that bad. Social media, so need for fuzzy search, autocomplete or advanced filtering. Application where search speed and relevance are critical. Avoid if your app is simple search needs, Django contain or PostgreSQL search is enough. You don't want to manage an extra service. Your data updates frequently and requires strong consistency. Alternatives to this Elasticsearch is Postgres full text search, good for simple cases, no extra service needed. We have this Whoosh, it's a pure Python lightweight but slower. We have mail search, that is type sense, easier to set up than Elasticsearch. And then our DeepSeek gave us a final verdict. Elasticsearch is a powerful but adds complexity. Use it when search is a core feature of your app. For small projects, stick with PostgreSQL search or simpler alternatives. So that is all guys for this video. So guys, if you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing and also liking this video. If you have any comment, please leave that comment inside. Give that comment in the comment section so that I can know what to do next. Okay, I promise to reply to you. So I'm going to leave this GitHub repository on the video's description so that you can go there and check it out. But if you want to learn, don't skip any step, just watch step by step so that you can understand. Okay, and then this repository is open for anyone who wants to contribute to it. Just create a pull request and then give it your pull request a message, and then I will merge it. Thank you. See you in the next video.